I'm sure that most people, when they get married or commit, hope for a solid, long-lasting relationship. But sometimes people do change, issues and differences arise that cannot be solved, and the only solution is divorce or separation. So how do you overcome the hurt and anger that comes with the ending of a relationship to regain your self-esteem, to pick up the pieces and to build a new life? Joining me in studio to chat more about how finding yourself after a divorce can be done is DStv. Leah, so good to have you back. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, why is it that it's, especially after a long-term solid relationship or marriage, is it so traumatic and so hurtful, and there's so much anger that's involved in the situation?
Look, we tie all our hopes, our dreams, our future visions, our whole life plans into our relationship, and we make these plans long term. We visualize growing old with this person.
Yeah.
And I find that for a lot of people, the pain of losing the relationship is not so much about the relationship ending, but about the picture they had of where the relationship was going to go, of that ending. And suddenly it's that whole future vision is gone, and now you don't know where you stand, you don't know who you're doing it with, you feel isolated, you feel alone. A lot of anger because of the broken agreements, the broken promises. So, and a lot of your identity when you're a couple is tied into being a couple.
Yes.
So suddenly the relationship's not there, and you question who you are because that other half isn't there.
It's interesting that, because also when you think about it, if the relationship has come to an end, as the intro said, people change, situations change.
Yeah.
It's maybe not that you're unhappy about the fact that it's ending, but as you say, it's the fact that your whole world has come apart at the seams, really.
And for any relationship that's ending, there has been a whole period of denial leading up to that point. And when the relationship ends, there's a lot of actual anger at yourself, not even just about at your partner, because there was a lot of stuff you knew was not okay. You were not addressing it, you weren't facing it, you kept brushing everything under the carpet. So you knew the changes were happening, and you weren't willing to address it. You knew stuff wasn't okay, you weren't willing to find the therapy or the coaching to help you with it. So that anger is directed in two ways. You know, people just won't admit that they're really angry with themselves. It's easier to be angry with your ex.
Exactly. I mean, again, it's another form of denial in the situation. But yeah, how do we work to overcome this anger? And maybe also, let's take it a step back to identify, is the anger at ourselves or the other or the situation? And then how do we unpack it so that we can get beyond it?
Look, I think the anger's both. I think it's definitely with the ex, it's with yourself, it's with the situation. So anger is healthy in certain circumstances. You know, anger is our warning system that boundaries have been violated, that there's pain, we need to pay attention to it. So anger can be quite healthy in certain circumstances. But when a divorce happens, anger becomes destructive.
Right.
And it becomes, I'm angry with myself, I'm angry with you, and everybody is going to get caught in the crossfire. And the problem with that anger post-divorce is it becomes the only lens that you're now viewing everything through. So you'll be angry with your kids, you'll be angry with your ex, you'll be angry with your colleagues at work, you're going to get road rage, and suddenly your whole life is just an angry existence. So it's critically important for me to get therapy when you're going through divorce, to help you start reining that back a bit and processing what the emotion is really about. Because quite honestly, the real emotion is pain, but it's much easier to feel anger than pain.
Yeah.
So people hide the hurts and the pain, and they're just angry all the time because it's easier to cope when you're in a state of anger. So, you know, dealing with that anger, I'm a big fan of writing things out. You know, you've got to write your story down, because when you get into that anger loop of just overthinking it, you're not actually thinking with any perspective at all.
Yeah.
So writing it down, write down the story of the relationship, the story of the ending of the relationship, how you are feeling. So write it out and speak it out. Write it down and speak with a therapist, a friend, you know, a family member, to process of what has gone on.
Yeah.
The thing of dealing with your anger is that you're also going to maybe have to reevaluate some of your belief systems. We all have belief systems around relationship, which led us to put up with stuff maybe we shouldn't have.
Yes.
And processing the ending of a relationship means we have to confront what we believe relationships to be. A really big one, which nobody ever wants to do, is take full responsibility for your part of what happened in the ending of that relationship. So you've got to keep the finger pointed towards yourself. And when you can start taking ownership of, you know, I did stuff that was also not okay, it's amazing how the anger levels just drop.
Yes,
because now there's not a single target. Now I'm as much responsible for what happened here. So taking ownership, big part of dealing with your anger.
What about kids? Because it's a huge part of any divorce or breakup of a relationship, is that there there are these little humans that are so loving in a situation and they're impacted, and your anger can impact them. But also, how do you moderate your reaction to the other in the relationship or the failed relationship without destroying or creating animosity with children, all of those bad things that come along with a pretty tough situation?
And that is, for me, the worst consequence of anger in a divorce is the children. And what therapy is definitely going to help you do is learn how to process your emotion, but more importantly, how to manage your reactive nature.
Right.
Your ex is not your punch bag. Your ex's job is not to get you through your emotional state. So you can't keep dumping it on them in front of the kids or over the phone so your kids can overhear this. At the end of the day, you are going to be in each other's lives forever because you've got kids together. So you are bound, and you've got to seek to find the most workable relationship you can for the sake of your children. So stop using your children as the go-betweens. Stop involving them. Stop bad-mouthing your partner to your children. And most of all, they have to feel that there is a safe space in both homes.
Yes.
So very often you've got to get a third party in to mediate that, because you're so stuck in the upset and the resentment that you can't do it yourself. But it's really something you've got to pay attention to.
So Leah, another big factor of any long-term relationship is the financial side, because you kind of become intertwined or dependent. How do you manage that? Again, going back to the anger in a situation, because I can imagine that the resentment, if you are dependent on your partner and now it's falling apart, you just want to take. How do you balance that?
That's an incredibly hard one, but again, it's taking responsibility for your empowerment around money in your life. And even if you are married and you're in a happy marriage, if you are 100% dependent on your partner, it is a problem. And you have got to start making plans of how you're building your own credit score, how you may be starting a little side business, how you're generating your own income, so that you're never in a position like most people do find. And typically we're looking at women, who stay at home to look after the kids, who aren't earning money, and then they feel that they get left at the end of it. It's a very hard road, because divorce attorneys, want to take everybody for what they can get, and very often you are going to be left with very little income. So all you can do is work with what you've got, and the first thing is to really manage a budget according to the fact that you're now single. So do a budget for yourself. You are going to have to make sacrifices. All of those luxuries you had, you can't have them for now, not forever, for now. Really accept that this is a period of transition. You're not going to be in this place forever, but for right now you have to start making some cuts, and you've got to be very focused on getting into action around paying off your debt, around managing income, around getting a good credit rating, because if you've never owned a credit card or you've never earned your own income, you can't just go out and buy a car, get yourself a new home. You need that credit score. So for me, it's educating yourself about wealth. And one of my favorite people is Ann Wilson, the wealth chef. Because it's amazing to me how people are so scared of knowing anything about wealth and how to manage it. So educate yourself, whether you're in a relationship, going through a divorce, make sure that you've got financial education. And starting a side business and earning extra income is the most empowering thing.
I can imagine, I mean, if you're not doing it and you realize, sure, I can actually do this. And when you look at people like Ann Wilson, who teach this thing of side hustles and small businesses and things like that you can do without putting your whole heart and soul in your life into it, but you can get a lot out of it, and also that sense of achievement,
and self-esteem, and self-respect, and self-confidence.
Absolutely.
When you do it for yourself, it builds up that sense of self that you've lost in the divorce. And a lot of people feel quite worthless, low self-esteem after divorces happen. So knowing how to do it for yourself, and Michael, we've never been in a time in history when it's been so easy to start a side hustle.
Exactly.
Start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, write a book.
Online business, whatever it might be.
And for most of that you can start for free. You don't need money to get that stuff going. So another fantastic book that's right now on the market is How to Start a Side Hustle by Nick Haralambos. And he's got an online course as well, which just teaches you how you can start doing that stuff from home, because people don't know where to begin. And it's amazing how easy it actually is. So you ticking, that self-respect, and you're ticking the financial freedom, and starting your life in a new direction that's based on your stuff, not anybody else's.
I think just let's delve a little bit deeper for a moment into the idea of self-esteem and your feelings towards yourself in the breakdown of a relationship as well, because we've touched on it from a financial side of things. But in general, that collapse, what are people's thoughts around it? Because often I think people think, it's my failure.
Absolutely, everybody's takeaway from divorce is failure. Failure, guilt, shame. A lot of the work I do with people really is about seeing this as it happened the way that it happened because both of you were doing the best you knew in the way you knew how. And you tried, probably past the point where you should have said goodbye. So there's no failure in this, but the failure for me would be staying in an unhealthy, toxic situation where both of you are feeling less of yourselves. That for me is more of a failure. It takes huge courage to end a relationship that's no longer working. Self-care and prioritizing yourself is a huge thing to do with self-esteem and self-respect. And that comes in daily ritual. So do the same stuff in the morning, in the evening, manage your day in the same way, have predictability, have consistency, keep your agreements with yourself because self-trust underlies self-esteem and self-confidence. And when we say, I'm going to start gym on Monday and then we don't, we've just broken an agreement with ourselves. I'm going to eat well, break that agreement, no trust with ourselves. So a big part of picking ourselves up after a divorce is building our own self-trust that we know we're capable of anything. And that has a lot to do with challenging yourself with small things that you know you can achieve, and definitely bringing new energy into your life. And new energy through hobbies, through new work experiences, new friends, because when you can explore yourself in a new environment, you remember who you are and you remember what you're made of, versus being in the same environment where you were, where you don't get to see yourself through a different lens.
Very interesting stuff, Leah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I think hopefully it's given a lot of people a lot to think about, because all these little things that you take for granted, which can be revisited as you progress through a challenging time, but you can come out good on the other side. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Great.